The next game that's on the agenda was an old-fashioned slugfest from two big offenses that absolutely showed out and performed, and it went literally down to the final second. Unfortunately, Minnesota did miss the field goal to win the game, and as I stated, it was 33 to 34 in favor of the Arizona Cardinals, who move on to 2-0. Minnesota falls to 0-2. So, Kyle, I know you have a question for me, but just overall, I mean, usually I'm always going first, so I just want to hear your thoughts on this old fashioned game. I haven't seen a game like this go back and forth, at least be a 1 point game in quite some time. So, what do you think this means for both teams going forward?
I'll start with the Arizona Cardinals since they were the team that won here. When I look at the Cardinals, this team's legit. Offensively, they've been sensational. Kyler was, I think, solid today. I thought he got off to a very hot start, but the one thing that does kind of follow him are these turnover issues. He had two more interceptions today, and it did give the Vikings some opportunities to put some points back on the board. So when I look at the Arizona Cardinals overall, I was really kind of questioning whether or not that they would be competitive in the NFC West because you have a an awesome division. You got to deal with the Los Angeles Rams, who are possibly one of the best teams in the NFC. You got Seattle to deal with, and the 49ers are coming off of a year where they were riddled with injuries, and they look like they are a much more competitive force than they were last year. But when I look at Arizona this year, it looks like Kyler has taken a step forward. And even despite the fact that they let up 33 points against Minnesota's offense, they were able to do just enough to get by. And that's going to be the issue for this team moving forward, though, is whether or not that Arizona's defense can hold up. And can Kyler overcome how anemic this defense can be? Obviously, Chandler Jones was a huge story last week with him getting 5 sacks. That was not the case today. He had a decent game, but not, a 5 sack worthy game like he had in week one. And, that's the thing is who's going to show up? Is if Kyler shows up consistently like he has been the last 2 weeks, I think the sky's the limit when it comes to Arizona, possibly competing for the top of the NFC West this year. But if you're getting more performances where you're giving up 33 points in the process, that's a lot of pressure on Kyler's shoulders and the Arizona Cardinals offense altogether to combat. So, granted, it was good enough to win today. It was an offensive show from both teams today. And it really kind of goes to show just where the general direction of the NFL is going. There's a much bigger emphasis on the offensive side of the ball than there's the defensive side of the ball. And when you got dynamic playmakers like Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins just absolutely lighting it up, it's tough to stop that defensively. And when I look at the Vikings, man, the Vikings might be the best 0-2 team in the league because last week they lost in overtime 27-24 against the Cincinnati Bengals, and then they lose a 1 point game against the Arizona Cardinals. So both of their losses are a combined 4 points. I mean, it doesn't get that much closer to winning a game than the results that they've had the last 2 weeks when they lost both of them. So I'm not going to put too much worry on the Vikings just yet. I think Kirk Cousins has played pretty solid so far. I mean, even in the game today, relatively speaking, I thought he was solid. 22 of 32 passing, 244 yards. He threw 3 touchdowns. And Dalvin Cook was solid on the ground. He had 22 carries and over 130 yards rushing. So I think obviously the main issue with the Vikings is their defense, is that their defense is atrocious. And until they get that corrected, this team is going to be average, mediocre to average. I don't see how they're going to be able to turn this thing around if the defense is not there to step up from what they were last year. Because statistically speaking, last year they were horrible. But offensively, they got a good thing going. Hopefully, it kind of stays that way. But when it comes to the Vikings overall, we're only 2 weeks in. I'm not too worried about them yet. If they continue this slide, then I will definitely be worried with this team. And it's in large part due to the defense. The defense just can't hold up against any offense they go against, apparently. And it kind of showed in that Arizona game. But all in all, this was a fantastic game, and this is probably one of the best games of the year so far.
So I'm going to agree in a lot of ways with what Kyle already reiterated or what he had already said. Kyler Murray, absolutely sensational. A total of 7 incompletions on his day, 29 and 36. 2 of those, unfortunately, were taken for interceptions. He was sacked 3 times, but overall, Kyler Murray was just at an MVP caliber level. 400 total yards, 11 yards per throw. Absolutely incredible. 3 total touchdowns. Oh, excuse me, 3 total passing touchdowns, and then 1 rushing. Uh, and you know what I'm saying? They played very good football. And I mean, they ran the ball, I want to say okay. They only had 21 rushing attempts. But it was an old-fashioned shootout, like I said. I mean, everybody was slinging it. So, I mean, on both sides of the ball, the offensive side was great, but there just seemed to be a little bit more defense from Minnesota just because, again, like I said, Tyler had 2 interceptions and he was sacked 3 times. So Minnesota's defense did step up, but it wasn't enough. And to lose the game by missing a field goal does unfortunately suck because, you know, the offense is putting in a whole lot of work. The defense was shorthanded. Anthony Barr was out. Everson Griffin was out with a concussion. So they were shorthanded, and I felt that they did a very good job, and I'm referencing the Vikings, at trying to keep Kyler Murray contained. That is a very difficult assignment for any defense. But you did see some blown coverages. I mean, we had Rondell Moore had a 77-yard touchdown. I mean, it was absolutely just a blown coverage. You have Max Williams going for a 34-yard reception. Christian Kirk had a 35-yard reception. A.J. Green had a 29-yard reception. So it just seems like there were a lot of holes within this defense. Granted, they did find ways to get certain stops and force some turnovers, but as Kyle stated, it wasn't enough to come over the firepower that was the Arizona offense. But I will give credit, like Kyle said, Dalvin Cook, great game. Kirk Cousins, great game. What's weird is I was actually at my girlfriend's house watching the games, kind of spending time with her family. And the second this game starts, the Vikings score within like 48 seconds or 47 seconds. I see Kirk Cousins is literally sitting on the bench with the pad, and it was like 7-0. I'm just like, what the fuck did I miss? And when I saw that, I said, this game's literally going to go back and forth because Kyler Murray is going to run all over them. He threw all over them, but overall, my God, what a game. Definitely up there for game of the week, if not game of the year thus far. But it is unfortunate that Minnesota fell short. And I agree with Kyle. They're probably the best 0-2 team in the league. A total of 4 points and losses. That's got to sting. That's got to burn. And when they get those other players back on the defensive side of the ball, I believe that Minnesota will find a way to turn it around.